All right. Enough of this. Let's get into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be MMA judging yet again. I think anybody who's a diehard listener to our show, let me know. I feel like judging has been on the marquee in the past at some point for our show. So this past week,
once.
yeah. And you know what? Judging in MMA is still a thing. It's still one of those sort of issues in MMA that is sort of always ongoing, and every once in a while it comes up again because of something like this. So this past weekend, Ketlen Vieira defeats Holm, the preacher's daughter, by split decision, earning a 48-47 on two of the judges' scorecards. Holm earning a 48-47 on the other scorecard. This went down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. A very consequential women's bantamweight bout. Let's discuss this, guys. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your reaction? First question, of course. Do you think that Vieira was the rightful winner to the fight?
So, no, but with some understanding. So, allow me to elaborate. I guess I'll skip their performances for now. I'll go right into the scoring. So I'll come at this from a couple angles. My live feeling is that I thought it was a brutally bad decision. I thought Holly may have won 4 rounds, and that she certainly won 3, and I thought she was horribly robbed. It also cost me 2 parlays that I had Holly attached to, and a Holly Holm by decision bet. So maybe that had something to do with my reaction in the moment, because I wasn't even really paying attention to the decision being read because I was so sure that she had won and I was already counting my money. And then I heard it, and I was like, wait, what just happened? So I wasn't thrilled. On the rewatch, I did still score the fight, 49-46 for Holly Holm. The only round that I personally scored for Ketlen Vieira was the second. However, I did realize that rounds 3 and 4 were significantly closer rounds than I realized live. And I guess that I can see them being scored for Vieira. And
Okay.
if I can see either of them being scored for Vieira, that also by default means I would have to accept if they were both scored for Vieira. And if that happens along with round 2, which is what 2 of those judges did, then she wins the fight. So do I agree with it? No. Do I kind of understand it more than I ever expected to after the rewatch? Yeah.
Omar, let's bring you in here. First off, just like I asked Mark, who did you think won the fight?
So I also thought Holly Holm won the fight. I think the real thing that I saw throughout the fight was, especially on the feet, was the difference between volume and power. Holly was able to get a lot of shots off in that fight, but Ketlen was able to knock back Holly almost every time that she landed something on Holly. So there was a lot more damage, it seemed, and a lot more impact when Ketlen landed, but she landed very few and far between. There's a lot of control from Holly, not a lot of advancement from Holly. If we did have yellow scorecards like we were talking, or yellow cards like we were talking about the last time, a couple of those would have probably gone up in that fight before that decision actually came to a close. Holly definitely could have done more, but at the same time, Ketlen didn't get out of that situation. This kind of goes back to the MVP Storley thing when we talked about it, and how MVP at least was working from the bottom to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, MVP wasn't able to get up from the bottom, and Ketlen wasn't able to get up off the cage for a good couple rounds there. And I don't think that what Ketlen offered in those rounds was enough to counter essentially 4 minutes of control in those rounds. The 5th round, I think, by far was Holly's best round.
100%.
But 3 and 4 were more contestable than any of the other ones. I think 1, 2, and 5 were the most clear-cut rounds of the fight. 3 and 4, I think, is where it got really hazy. And yeah, I still scored them for Holly as well. I don't think Ketlen did enough. I just don't.
What you just said about the fifth round, I think plays a large role in why this decision feels so bad. Because even as much as I rewatched it and I'm like, all right, maybe 3 and 4 were closer than I thought. As a whole, Holly Holm absolutely won that fight because rounds 1, 2, 3, 4 were all pretty close, and round 5 is a blowout for Holly Holm. So, like, if you're looking at that fight from a whole, it certainly feels like she's supposed to be the winner, which I definitely think plays into you see Ketlen Vieira's hand getting raised, and you're like, this just feels wrong.
Yeah.
Agree.
I mean, my whole thing was you had to see Ketlen's reaction, right? Like, Ketlen knew she lost that shit.
Yes.
She knew.
100%
Coaches
she knew.
knew.
I agree.
Everybody
She
knew.
seemed kind of surprised.
Pederneiras knew for sure. He was losing his mind in the corner in between every round.
As religious as that woman is, I guarantee you that's one of the ones that she goes, see, God is real. I told you. I told you. I prayed for it, and there it was.
Asked and he provided.
There you go.
Oh, that's a big pet peeve of mine, man. In any sport, when athletes win and they're like, "Man, God is so good," I'm like, "Shut up." That's not it. That's not it, man.
Give yourself a little bit more credit, I guess.
Diehard religious people are about to turn this show off.
Oh God.
Sorry, Alabama. Frankly, I was frustrated both ways, right? Like, the fight wasn't super entertaining at the end of the day. It wasn't like a barn burner or anything wild. Holly could have done a lot more. She had a lot of control time in that fight, but she didn't really do as much as I think she could have. Ketlen didn't have any response to being against the cage, so she just kind of rode that shit for most of the rounds. When she was off the cage and when she did land something, she did make an impact. But again, there wasn't a ton of that happening throughout the fight, so there wasn't really a lot to go on. It's a good point about the fifth round, though. I guess there is a little bit of bias in who won the fight just based off of how that fifth round went. But at the same time, it sucks that that's how that ended. It didn't feel like the right result.
So, as much as I want to be talking more about either one of these two women and the significance that this win has for their careers and where they might be going from here, and we will get to that. But guys, the word on the marquee once again is judging. So let's talk about the judging a little bit more specifically. Mark, let me throw it over back to you. Talking about the state of judging in MMA. If you were in control in some way, do you think that there's something that needs to be done to fix judging in MMA?
So yes, I absolutely do. We can't. When we started this podcast, I've said this before on this podcast. When we started this podcast, I never in a million years thought we would be spending as much time discussing scoring as we have. It seems like it has exploded as of late. It seems like every other week there's a fight, a big time fight, where it's like, I'm not sure how that got scored that way. Mm-hmm. So certainly I think something has to be done. I mean, it's not, MMA is trying to be a mainstream sport. You could even say it is already a mainstream sport in some ways. How often is there a basketball game where we're like, man, like that team won, but it's really not fair because the other team did better. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, of course there's blown calls, but it's not like they're awarding it to a team that scored less points. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there needs to be a way for this to be more clear. Obviously, there's a million ideas being presented. You can hear a ton of different people in the space. You can go on Twitter and find people who have no idea what they're even talking about, throwing out a million ideas for you.
Of course.
So many things sound good in the moment, then you start nitpicking it. You're not entirely sure. Obviously, we've discussed open scoring on here before, which there's certainly arguments for. We've discussed changing from the arguably outdated 10-9 and 10-8 system, which was adopted from boxing, which is an entirely different sport. And I heard Brett Okamoto make a great point on that when he was talking about the results of this fight. And he was stressing how that system works so much better when there is 12 of those score or 15 of those score, like in boxing. In MMA, when it's only 3 10-9s, 10-8s. It's way too much weight being put into that type of scoring,
That's a
which
great
makes
point.
a ton of sense, which I hadn't really thought about before. But to me, and I want you guys to counter this if you think there's something I'm not seeing. To me, the more I think about it, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately because there's a lot of problems in MMA lately, even going back to the MVP Storley fight and other fights like that we've discussed where it's like guys trying to avoid the fight, going back to Rose and Carla and how the hell do you score that bullshit. The more I think about it, the more I keep coming back to the thought that basically returning to everything that Pride did would solve a lot of problems. Mainly in 3 ways. 1, you score the fight as a whole. It eliminates controversy about rounds. There's no more worry of like, oh, you got a 10-9 and then I got a 10-9, but really mine was a lot clearer than yours, so this 10-9 system isn't working so well. That worry is gone. And you reward a fighter who truly... So like this Holly fight, it would be solved because anyone who watched rounds 1 through 4 and thought, man, this is a close fight, I'm not trying to score these rounds. You're watching round 5 and you're like, well, Holly just pulled away. She just won that fight. So you're scoring it as a whole. No one's scoring that fight for Vieira. So it solves that, in my opinion. You simply watch a full fight and you decide who won. And the same exact thing would go for Michel Pereira, who we'll get to, who had a big round 1 in his fight against Pons. And then 2 and 3 were very close. And there was some controversy about that scoring. If you're scoring that fight as a whole, same thing. Pereira was way ahead after round 1. It's his fight. So I think it solves a lot of those issues. 2, I keep hitting this fucking microphone. Sorry if it's making a lot of noise. 2, you add the yellow cards for stalling that we've discussed in prior weeks for people who are trying to avoid the fight. Again, going back to our Storley MVP discussion, how to solve things like that. That solves that, or at least it begins to address that. And then 3, Pride. I don't remember if Pride did this for its entirety, but there was certainly a large period of years in Pride where if a fight ended and judges felt like, you know what, I don't think a winner has been determined in that fight, they would say, go out there, we're doing a sudden death round. How nice would that be in a fight like Rose and Carla? If we're scoring that fight as a whole and the fight ends and we get to say, that was bullshit, neither one of you should be the champ right now, you're going out there for 5 more minutes. And how much would those 2 girls push it in 5 more minutes, knowing those 5 are all that matters? And then you get a whole different fight than you got in the first 25. So that's 3 reasons right there that the way Pride did things, at least in my mind, solves a lot. So again, I don't know if I'm missing anything on those points. I would love to hear your guys' takes, but I feel like I don't really hear anyone talk about much of that. I always hear like the open scoring, the change the 10-9. I think that solves a lot.
Omar?
So I was looking up this sudden death thing just now because that would be such a fantastic rule.
Let's call it sudden victory.
Is it sudden victory? Is that what it is?
I mean, it's not like there's no precedence for that in the UFC. I mean, that's what they do on Tough. Yeah. Yep. I mean, of course, those are 2 rounds. Yes. So if it's like, hey, if it's a tie going out of leaving 2 rounds, and you're like, hey guys, we're doing number 3, but fuck it, let's do it. If it
works fine, they wait. After the 2 rounds, they're like, let me hear what's up, and then if they have to do round 3, they're ready to go. You know, like it would work. There's no reason it wouldn't work.
Love it, and you love that when it's on those episodes of Tough when it's like, oh shit, we're going to sudden victory round. It's like, hell yeah, man, it's good TV.
We should get into Tough in a minute, but yeah. When it comes to these sudden victory rounds, I would love to see something like that. But the yellow scorecards to me or the yellow card, I keep calling them scorecards. The yellow cards to me, I think are paramount. I think they should bring that in regardless of whatever they decide to do with the scoring or not, because there needs to be something against stalling. If there's a one change that I would love to see from the way that judging is done now and the way the fights are looked at, top control needs to get less love. It can't just be top control is the Bible and you win. That can't be it going forward. The MMA has come way too far. Guys are way too good on the ground at this point. When you used to be on top, when you used to have top control back in the day, it was guys like Tito Ortiz that were beating your face in.
Or Frank Shamrock or Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, GSP, who, granted, wasn't the most exciting towards the later half of his career, but was always active, always moving, always punching, always like posturing up, trying to do something. There is a ground game to work from your opponent's guard, but guys are literally just chilling at this point in people's guard, doing nothing, just holding on at this point for dear life, smothering them so that they can't do anything either, not even trying to pass, but they win because what else is there? What else is there for us to go by? And so that just can't be the way. There's got to be something else, for us to do. There's got to be ways for that to stop, and it can't be relying on the crowd reaction. There has to be something in the guidelines that say that they can't stall. They can't. They have to be fighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's something about whole fight scoring that changes the way the fighters fight that is so much more pure to me. I mean, there's no more. I feel like there would be no more of a guy, taking a round off. There also would be no point of open scoring at that point. If you did whole fight scoring, I don't think you would need. There would be nothing to be open about.
Yeah, no.
And there wouldn't be a guy taking a round 2 or a round 3 off, so to speak, because it's the whole fight. I mean, maybe guys can coast for a few minutes because they feel like they are conserving their energy. But I just feel like it's a much more different management of energy, of time overall. And I would love it, man.
I mean, not to make it too dumbed down, because I understand it's a sport. It's not like a backyard fight. But if you ever watched two people fight, right? And then you're, two of your friends, and then another friend was like, who do you think won that fight?
Yeah.
All you would say was, who won the fight? You wouldn't be like, well, the first 3 minutes were really him, and then the next 3, and how should I weigh it? You would just be like, oh, I think this guy won. It's so much more natural to score it that way.
If your friends fought,
I agree.
For like 60 seconds.
Well, you know what
before they
trying to
puke
say.
it everywhere.
That being said, if it wasn't whole fight scoring, some combination of open scores between rounds, plus introducing yellow cards, red cards, what have you, to prevent a fighter who is ahead, prevent them from coasting in the third round or later in the fight. It seems to me to be such a great combo of rules.
Yeah, it'd be better than what we have right now, for sure.
If Holly Holm could look up at the end of the 4th round and be like, oh, shit, like I'm not winning as much as I thought I was, it might have been different.
Like if Ketlen was throwing more while against the cage, right? If she was like landing elbows or some shit, or landing knees, or really doing damage to Holly, while her back was up against the cage, while she technically didn't have control, I would be way more okay with her winning those rounds. But the fact is that she was literally doing nothing. She was completely neutralized in those moments.
Yeah,
and it just didn't feel. It didn't feel like she won that fight by any stretch of the imagination.
To me, Ketlen showed the same flaws that she has always showed. Like, to be honest, I did think Holly looked a bit slower. Like, she was getting hit more than she usually gets hit. I felt like her reaction time was a little bit slower. So maybe age is starting to be a factor. But for the most part, she fought kind of the same fight that we know to be a Holly Holm fight, like clinching, control, her short little punches, front kicks, side kicks to keep that distance, like outscore your opponent. It's what she does. Ketlen showed all the same flaws that I feel like she has shown in this whole stretch. Like, obviously she's tough and she can crack, but there's too much waiting. There's too much tentativeness. There's not enough confidence in her own game. And I wish that she lost this fight so she could be like more forced to address these things. I almost feel like now she gets gifted this win and she's just going to continue to be this same fighter, which is not a fighter that can win a belt at all.
What do you think about more judges? Is that possible, you think?
We would have to. I mean, I'm down to do 5 judges. I'd be down.
Yeah. I don't hate it.
Of course, there's logistical things. The commissions, they probably can't logistically get 7, 9 judges, but
yeah,
I feel like 5 would be so much better.
What do you feel about judges having access to stats the way that we do? Like,
I don't like it.
I don't think they'd even have time to consider them because they have to watch.
I don't even look at stats when I score a fight.
No.
I feel like it's like it doesn't tell the true story.
Do you think it would? Well, for a close fight though, like for those close rounds that the one would have to edge over the other.
The issue is like you'll see like 20 strikes to 15, but those 15 may have all been harder than the 20.
Right.
So it's like I feel like the numbers don't. I don't want judges getting hung up on numbers. I want them scoring what they see.
I also want to know. I want to get some more clarity on exactly how those stats are taken away because there was that the Carla Rose fight really brought up some questions to me as to where the hell they got all those strikes attempted and all that stuff from because I don't remember none of that. So I want to know exactly what their definition is for all of those different stats that they take.
Yeah, Mike, I don't hate your more judging idea, but I feel like even though it's slightly better because at least you have 5 instead of 3, it's still working off a flawed system.
Sure.
That I would like to see changed. So like, is it slightly better? Yeah. Would open scoring be even better than that? Yeah. Personally, for me, would full fight scoring be even better than that? Yeah. Like, but any improvements we can make, I'll take it.
To that, do you remember how were Pride scores like written? Like, if it was full fight scoring,
literally the dude would come out and just say, "Judges scored the fight. Winner, Mike Hansen."
Oh, okay.
Like, literally.
So there'd be no number. There'd be no score.
Yeah, no score.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And I think also judges can be way more lenient or more generous with scoring a round even. If we're still doing round scores.
I would love that too. The fact that Rose Carla round 1 did not get scored even is the biggest joke I have ever seen in my entire life. Why do we have the ability to score rounds 10-10 if we are going to watch 2 girls stand across from each other, each tap each other 3 times, and say, nah, one of them won that round 10-9.
Had to give right.
Have we ever seen a 10-10 round in the UFC?
I must have.
I couldn't tell you. I feel like yes, but I couldn't tell you.
I don't think so.
I just know it is allowed.
It is allowed. It should be way more common though, because some rounds are even.
Yeah, I
have no problem with a fight being a draw.
But see, this is. I feel like I'm just going back to. I feel like I'm pumping my full fight thing, but like, it's another reason why I love that because like, why do we have to get so tricky of like, man, that round was so close. Should I make it a 10-9? Should I make it a 10-10? Like, why do we need these numbers? Like, just watch the fight and let's say who won it. I just feel like it eliminates so many problems.
Even with full fight scoring, I would be so okay with judges being more allowed to, who won the whole fight. I kind of think it was even the whole fight. It was. Let's call it. I'm calling it a draw.
That's what I'm saying about my sudden death.
I'm okay with that.
Like, if 2 out of 3 judges say, I think you guys got to fight 5 more minutes, fucking get back out there.
Yeah,
5 more.
I love that.
Let's find out for sure who really wants it.
Dude, Ovin St. Preux versus Gian Vellante had
what a 10-10?
2 10-10 rounds.
2? Wow.
So,
but like, think about Max and Volk in a month or 2, whatever that is. Imagine it's full fight scoring, and they just go to fucking war, and that fight ends, and the judges are like, "Boys, I don't know what to tell you. We need 5 more." Imagine the goosebumps on your body being like sudden death round. These 2 guys are bloody. Neither one's gonna quit. They're going out for a 6th round. Like, it would be insane moments. Like,
that's sick.
I don't know what's not to like.
Yeah. Oh man. If you can only choose one thing to change about judging out of the various things we've mentioned, what would it be? What do you think is priority numero uno?
For me, it's the yellow cards.
Really? Okay.
It might be for me too.
Stalling,
amongst other things. But
we can't have fights like what Storley did to MVP.
There's yellow cards, full fight scoring, open scoring, more judges. all those kinds of things. I think full fight scoring. I would love to see that. I don't think there's any reason. I think I would love to get away from the boxing system.
Yeah.
Just doesn't seem to work.
Too. That's what I'm between, that and yellow cards. Those are my two biggest things. For sure.
MMA just seems to have too many other variables.
Absolutely.
From boxing.
It is so much harder to score than boxing. So much harder.
It's too subjective. It's still too subjective.
Yeah. Right. If
In
I'm
boxing,
winning on... Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was saying
please.
in boxing, you're comparing just punches to punches. In MMA,
Right.
you're like, well, did that takedown overrule those punches that just happened? Did that back take count for more than whatever? Now he reversed the position. Was that a sub attempt? Like, there's so much.
Exactly.
Like, it's so much harder.
All right. Let's transition back to talking about these two ladies and where they might go from here at women's bantamweight. Let's start with the winner of this fight, Ketlen Vieira. Before Holly Holm, she defeated Miesha Tate. I would like to see her be treated as though she lost and have to rematch Yana Kunitskaya. But Yana herself is coming off of an L, and they don't always like matching up winners against recent losers. So, Omar, what do you think? Looking at women's bantamweight, where would you put Vieira next?
Didn't Yana just have a baby too?
Oh, did she really? I didn't realize that.
Did she really?
I should figure that out. I don't know if that was the case, but
You could be right.
What's next for Yana? Or not Yana?
Vieira.
Ketlen. So Ketlen says that she's going to wait. She's really high off of this win right here. I don't think that she has as much to hold her head up on that as she thinks she does. I'm pretty sure they're going to throw her one more person before they give her a title shot. As well they should, to be quite honest. Kind of difficult to say at this point who to get, because I'm pretty sure she's beat, or at least has fought, everyone at this point in that area. Let me just double check and see who she hasn't fought.
I could tell you who she hasn't if you want, and it's who I'm matching her up
do.
against.
It's going to save me some Googling time.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no way I'm letting Ketlen fight for a title coming off this win, and I don't think the UFC will either. I think she's absolutely got to win another one, especially considering she just lost to Yana Kunitskaya, as you said, like 2 fights ago. And before that got knocked out by Irene Aldana, not even that much before that. So, yeah, she has this little run, but I'm throwing her in there with Raquel Pennington. They haven't fought. Raquel has quietly rattled off 4 in a row. She doesn't lose to anyone besides the tippity top of the division. I say let's get her in there with Raquel, and we'll see which one of them is the real contender right now.
I'm down for that. Definitely
Love
down
it.
for that.
Love it. What about Holly? What do you guys think about Holly? Mark, let me stay with you. The preacher's daughter, who would you match her up with next?
She's not as easy to match up. She has fought a lot of these girls already as well. But I feel like you're not going to take her and really move her so far down the line. There's another girl who's kind of at the top of this division who Holly also had a controversial fight with years back, and that's Germaine de Randamie. I'm not sure of her health right now. She was supposed to fight back in November and had to pull out of the fight, so I don't know what the injury was or when she is planning to return, but I just kind of feel like that's where Holly is right now, in that we have Amanda and Pena. Maybe we're going to have something like Vieira and Pennington trying to figure out a next title contender. I feel like you keep Holly in another high-profile fight to keep this division interesting other than the immediate title picture. And I think Holm and de Randamie does exactly that.
Nice. Any other names you want to throw out there, Omar?
I mean, that's probably as good as it's going to get. To Mark's credit, there's a lot of these names at the top here. She's already beat Irene Aldana, Raquel Pennington. The further down the list you go, the more you're sort of punishing her for not getting a decision that she should have gotten.
Yeah.
So I'm down for that. Germaine de Randamie hasn't been around for a minute. Currently, she's not officially ranked on there, neither in the featherweight or the bantamweight division.
Yeah, she got pulled because she's been out for too long.
Yeah, but she's definitely done enough that she should be able to just pop right back in there, at least in the top 5.
I mean, her last fight
yeah.
was choking out Juliana Pena, who's the champion. Like,
Yeah.
she's still good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, let us